Hi, this is Pamela Gropey Art, and today we are going to work on this happy fall sign, and we're going to paint these pumpkins in some little bit different colors, and you're going to have a lot of fun doing it. So let me get my surface and we will show you how it's done. So I'm going to put my two colors on my palette. This is Boulder. It's a gray color, a neutral gray, and I'm going to get plenty on there, and I'm going to mix it with a bit of white because I want it on the lighter side. So I'm going to put, this is titanium white. I don't use a lot of titanium white in my painting. I usually use wicker white. So the titanium white I use for like mixing for backgrounds, etc. This is just a wood skewer. It comes in handy to mix the paints in the bottle. I have read or heard that there is some kind of a paint mixer that really helps if they start to separate. So I'm going to take my 2-inch brush. This one's about ready to be retired. I need to get me some more, but this is my 2-inch low Cornell white nylon brush. I dip it in my caddy, my water caddy that I rinse my brushes in, and then I just push it or press it down gently on a paper towel to kind of get the excess out. And then I'm just going to work into the two paints. I'm not worried about much of anything. I'm just getting that thing loaded. And then I'm going to put my palette to the side, and I'm just going to come in here and start painting it on. If it's too light, you come back with a little bit more gray on your brush and blend it through. I like the striations for interest in the background rather than a solid. You can certainly go for a solid if you like. This is your painting, do what you like. But I like the variations in color. So it's going to take a lot of paint, so you may have to go back and put more out on the palette. You see how some of these little wads get in here? That was dry in the bottle. So sometimes you'll get those. Just pick them up with the edge of your paintbrush. I have to get more paint on my palette because now I'm already out. So I will be right back. So now I'm back with more of the Boulder on my palette, and I'm going to continue covering this. Until I like how it looks all the way across. And remember, acrylics typically dry a little bit darker than you put what the color they are when you first putting them on. So keep that in mind. If you want it to be lighter, it should look just a little bit lighter as you're finishing. And then when it's dry, it'll probably be the right tone. Okay. I think I have that covered well, and I'm not very particular, especially down here, because my pumpkins are going to be down there. If I want that to blend a little more, I'll just rub my paintbrush across it. Okay, now I'm going to let that dry, and we're going to transfer our pattern. Now here is a dry surface. This one is in a different color. I think this one was mushroom with white, and it came out a little bit darker. I think it has a little bit more green in it, but that's just to show you that this doesn't really matter. You can have a background that you like. My original, let me compare it and I'll show you. See how much lighter this one is? So you can go with what you like. A neutral color is great. It doesn't have to be perfect. So you pick the color you want. I like kind of the more subdued or darker one in this sign. Since I already did a lighter one, I'm ready for a darker one. Let's get our pattern transferred. I have an entire post and video on transferring pattern. So I'm going to get, this is the pattern that I have for download. And this is the pattern you can get. And you see how I lined up the register marks here? Now it doesn't meet, the paper edges don't. You want to meet the lines, match the lines, and that will get you where you need to be for your pattern. You see how the pumpkin now lined up? And so that's the pumpkin part. And then here's the lettering, which you would copy part of the lettering here, move it, and then copy it up there. And that is, so you don't have to copy too many pages to get the pattern. So I'm going to line this up on the side. Line this up. I will tape it together and down. Now it doesn't have to be perfect. Now it goes a little bit over the edge, so this one can move a little bit this way. And if you want the bottoms to be, because this was kind of the bottom of my other sign, but it doesn't have to be perfect. You can have it a little ways up and then finish the pumpkins down on the bottom, which would be very simple to do. So here's the pattern transferred on. I did use the white transfer paper, graphite paper, and now we're ready to get painting. I am going to start with the back pumpkin first. So I did that one. The undercoat, I'm going to do 2 coats on each of these pumpkins. The undercoat I did in pure orange. And I'm going to use a number 12 flat brush. So I'm dampening my brush in my caddy. I press it against paper towel and I load it. Now I'm not double loading right now because this is the undercoat. And I'm just going to follow the outline of my back pumpkin. And you see I'm stroking in the direction of the ribs of the pumpkin. So I'm just going to fill in. Now, if you're following the pattern specifically, you may want to keep your pattern hinged, taped on there and hinged, and that way you can lift it up, put it down, and then you could draw in the pattern lines again. I just usually wing it, so I don't worry about following the pattern exactly. But if you need to, that's fine. Go right ahead. I know how it can make it easier if you're following along on a pattern rather than just painting. Now you see this pumpkin and this pumpkin overlap that pumpkin. So I'm not going to paint orange here, but it does come back down here. Now I'm missing a line right there that I missed, but that's okay. I kind of know where it's at. Where this pumpkin, see this pumpkin line comes down. And that color will overlap the part of the orange that I don't want to show. The orange, or it's going to be the coral. So this upper rib here comes right along here. And then there's the stem right there. So there's the stem. I could even go over that, but I'm going to leave it because I know a lot of people would need the pattern. So you see how I kind of followed the lines the ribs would go with my strokes. I overlap that pumpkin just a little bit. Doesn't matter. That color is going to cover over it and straighten it all out. So I'm going to let the orange dry. And while the orange dries, I can be doing some other things. Now we're going to do the cotton bolls because they're towards the back and out of the way, and I can do those safely without interfering with my pumpkins. So those, I'm going to do a background color on those. So you could decide what you want. If you want it, I even saw some with like a lavender in the back, which would be kind of pretty. But I think I'm going to go with a darker gray or something similar, or a tan, and you can choose whatever color you like. Again, I could even go with a burnt umber mixed toned down with a little bit of white, but I'm going to go with this mushroom. You notice it's very close to this, but it's going to be a little bit darker, and I need a scruffy brush to dot these in. Let me go find a scruffy. So here's the scruffy that comes in the 10-pack. This is a 3/4 inch. There's also one that's a bit smaller. Work with the one that you find comfortable. You could also use a Deerfoot stippler for this if you wanted. But I'm going to go with the scruffy because that's the one that's in the pack that most people get. I'm always testing new brushes. Anyway, so I'm loading it with the mushroom. And then I'm just going to kind of follow those outlines. Don't worry if it's a little bit bigger than the outline. That's not the end of the world. But you see, there I have the outline of the cotton bowl. Now these ones are kind of scrushed way down on the pumpkins. I think I want it a little bit higher. Now if I would have been thinking when I copied down the pattern on here, I would have raised it up a little bit to put these in if I was going to follow it faithfully. But see, I'm just going to go up and I'm going to mimic, that's where the pattern is. And I'm just kind of putting in these little shapes here. And I'm going to do the same over here, and kind of like it's got a little bump there, a little bump there, and a little bump there. Now if you want to follow the pattern specifically and have them closer, go right ahead. I just wanted to give them a little bit more space up there. So there we go. We got kind of these lumpy, bumpy, scruffy things. And these ones kind of went off of the surface, so I'm going to bring them in. I just put the pattern down faithfully, and then now I'm doing my own thing, but it all will work. So there's the two that's there. So I'm going to rinse out my scruffy. So those have to dry before I go into the white to put the white on them. So the orange is pretty much dry. So here's the fire coral. These are plaid folk art. Let me see, the fire coral is a regular plaid folk art. It's not a multi-surface. I'm using the multi-surface pure orange, but they also have it in the regular. Both of them will work. So I am loading into my fire coral. Loading it well, and I'm just going to get a touch of the orange. And I'm blending it in. And what I'm going to do is I am going to do the ribs, or I should say I'm going to do the back pumpkin, and I'm going to put the orange in the side that is the rib. So right here is a rib. Now you notice most of the orange went off of the brush right there, and that's good, but there's a little bit left making streaks, and I want that. So if you want to just less streaks, then you add more of the fire coral. You may have to come in if you want the fire coral to be super corally or pink, then come back in and you'll do another layer or coat of that color. And now I'm going here. Now I'm following where the ribs would be. That's a rib with the orange. Again, don't worry about being perfect. We want this to be fun and enjoyable and not a trial. And you can just come in, fill in with the pink. I'm always changing on you, aren't I? I'm just showing you different ways you can do it and not sweat it. That makes it easier. And you kind of avoid where the rib would be. Now you can come and lay the rib back in if you need to. Down here, filling in where that pumpkin would show at the bottom. So if I wanted to find the ribs, I come in with the orange. Can you see how the orange really shows there? Come in with the orange. Now this pumpkin is in the back. I mean, not this pumpkin, this part. Now if you want to let it just dry and kind of see where everything's at, these two colors are very close to each other, so you may want to let it dry and you can see how it's turning out. I do know I want some more pink right there in the center, and you can kind of blend out. If there's too much orange, blend it out with a little bit of the pink. Now remember, the paint can get to a consistency on your painting where it will lift, so do this very carefully. And I just want that to be very opaque. There. Now we'll let it dry. And again, normally I would have painted that too and then just put the stem on top. But I was just showing you another way you could do it to get the stem in there and keep your lines, your pattern lines, visible to you. So let's leave it alone and let that dry, and we will come back to it after a bit. Now, oh, my cotton bolls are not completely dry. So I must have put them on there. Huh? Most of them are. Most of them are pretty much dry. So we're going to get some white. I will use wicker white for this. And we will put the cotton bolls on while the pink is drying. So here we go on putting the white on the cotton bolls. Now you notice this one kind of overlaps this pumpkin, so we're not going to do the white on that one. We'll wait till after we've done this pumpkin, then we'll paint that one. You have to kind of watch what was going on in your painting to make sure you get the background in the back and the front in the front. So I could do the white with the larger scruffy, but I know some people might find it hard to control exactly where you're getting the white. And if you want more control, go with the smaller scruffy. I know especially when I was first learning, I had a harder time controlling the larger brushes. I would normally, if it was just me painting this, I would use the larger scruffy. I'm going to do the smaller one for you. You do want some of the dark showing. You're going to have some of the, I don't know what they call them on cotton bolls, but the little stamens or little things that are coming up that are wrapping around it. So I'm just getting some white in my small scruffy, and I'm just going to tap lightly in kind of the shapes that I've seen them in photographs. I don't think I've seen real cotton bolls in a long time. But when you have the dark showing through, it kind of gives, little areas where it looks like there's almost ribs, like with the pumpkins. But when you put the details on, it will all come together. So that's a little too thick, but that's okay. I can tap it out and use that to load my brush for these other ones that I'm kind of leaving. Remember the dark showing through on some of. Well, we had an equipment failure. My microphone battery went dead and I did not realize it. So as I showed you how I was painting the green pumpkins, there's no sound. I am going to walk you through it now, and then I'm going to, right after I tell you this and show you on top of the already painted pumpkins, I'm going to put the piece that is silent. I'm going to speed it up slightly, and you can see how I did it from unpainted to this point. But I'm going to show you what I did as I'm talking you through it. Here's my 3/4 inch flat brush. I'm getting it damp. I'm doing where I dab it off. And my two colors, they're dried now because I went and dug up new batteries. So I'm putting the Succulent and Thicket onto my palette. And all I did was double load my brush with the Succulent and the Thicket. I want mostly Succulent sticking a little bit on my palette, but there it is, worked it in. And then I just went along the ribs with the Thicket on the ribs and the Succulent in the main part. I didn't mind if it got a little streaky because I like the streaks in the pumpkin. And let's see, let's go along here with both colors. And then right along here, you see I'm starting on the chisel edge on this one, and I'm kind of then spreading it as I go along. Now I did it a couple of times going along, and I just worked it through. And here I'm going on the other side of that rib with the green, the darker green, the Thicket, and then just working the Succulent in. Now I'm just going to get more Succulent, and I'm going to just work in the center. You see there's still some dark green in my brush, therefore it's getting on the pumpkin and just adding a bit of streaking, which is good. I like that. So you'll see the other video where I started from raw and then made my way through this. I'm making sure that those pink edges are covered. And now I'm going to go to this one. It's basically the same thing, double loading with the brush and just following along the ribs with the darker green. It does not have to be perfect, and you don't want like a rigid line. You want it to kind of blend. So it just looks like that's a shadow area and not a hard line. If you want more Succulent, less green in the center, then you just go and load just the Succulent on your brush and just work it in. If you want a little more of the dark green, go right ahead, put a little more in your brush and work it through. So that is basically that part. So I'll let that dry, and I'm going to now attach the sped up version that's silent so that you can watch me do it from just the background up. So thanks for being patient with me. Let's add a bit of the details. I'm letting the green dry thoroughly. So I'm going to put the little stamens or whatever they're called on the cotton bolls. Now I'm going to use burnt umber and Butter Pecan. These are both plaid folk art colors. Butter Pecan I don't think comes in multi-surface. It is only in the regular, but it's okay. I use both on all my paintings. So I'm double loading my brush, and it's mostly the burnt umber, touch of Butter Pecan, and just blend it in there. And then I'm just going to do what I call slide leaf stroke. So I'm just going to, right here at the base of the cotton bowl, just press, and it's at the chisel edge, standing up, press and lift. Press and lift. Didn't get that one quite fat enough. It's a little too skinny. I'm going to reload. Press. I'm leading with the Butter Pecan. Press and lift, and then press and lift. If I have to go over it, I will, if I want to make it a little deeper, darker. Same with this one. Press, lift, press, lift. That one, it kind of dried out there at the end of the stroke. Am I in the camera? Yes, I am. Press, stroke, press, stroke. Now we're just giving an indication. We're not trying to be real life. We're just indicating something. Let me kind of zoom in so you can see me do this a bit closer up. And I'm just setting my brush chisel edge, pressing down, drag, lift. Press, drag, lift. I give it a little curve sometimes on the side ones. Side little petal things. And there. I'm kind of making it look like it's holding on to that cotton bowl. Sorry for all the paint on my hands. Okay, there's those two, and then this one. Now, does it matter that some showing underneath? No, it does not matter. Like I said, the details, all of that, all works out. Now you can still see my pattern underneath there, and I would get my magic rub eraser and erase that. That'll take that right off. So I will wait to put the stems until I've taken that off. I gotta go find it. So I'm just gonna put my little stems in. Let me zoom back out. I put the stem in right here on this one. And this one I need to still do the white part. And I shall in a moment. But I'm going to go and do this one over here. And I'm going to do the press, lift, press, lift, press, lift. And reload the brush. Make sure I have a decent chisel edge on it so that I can do the stem. And you can kind of do little viney things if you want. And it didn't meet up with the bowl there. So pull it all the way up. And that looks pretty good for the cotton balls, I guess. Bowls. I don't know exactly what they call them, but that's close enough. So now I will find my eraser and take care of those little marks. Now let's move to this one. The one in my sample that I showed at the beginning of this was done, the background too, was done with Thunder Gray and white. So I'm going to do Thunder Gray. I really like the color of that pumpkin and how it came out. And so here's the Thunder Gray and here's the white, and I'm going to double load the same way I did before. And my white is a little thick, so I need to put out some fresh white. And I got a number 12 brush to do this instead of the 3/4 inch because I have smaller ribs to work on here, and I want to have a little more control. And to go over those darker colors, I probably am going to have to do it a couple coats. Now you can't really see the difference between the two colors right now, but that's okay. We're going to keep working at it. I'm going to put out the fresh white. My palette's getting a little full. I probably should get another piece of paper or fold this one over. My white's, oh, there it comes. Didn't want to come out. All right, double loading. Thunder Gray and Wicker White. Whoops, got it on the wrong side. That happens sometimes. Okay, so now I'm going to go around again here. The Thunder Gray is on the rib side. And I'm coming up all the way up to the top. And double loading with the Thunder Gray and the white. Now this is a little wider, so I'm going to just go along that other edge and then fill in. Oh, I'm wrong. I had more gray and less white, so let's redo that. More gray, less, and the white was the ribs. So, it's okay, it all comes out in the wash. I'm kind of obscuring the lines. If you have your pattern, then you can stick with it. I'm just going to go ahead and fill in with the Thunder Gray for the most part. Now I'm going to dip one corner in the white, and then I'm going to come and make that line there. See how that works? Keep that line white all the way up there to the stem. And I'm just going to go over this pumpkin as well. Oh, I got a little bit of the brown in there, that's fine. Now I'm dipping a corner in the white. See, I got a corner of white. And I'm going to kind of bring it up to this as a rib here. Got a little more of the brown in there. How did I do that? I must have dipped it in the brown on here. It's all right. I like the striations or the little bit in there for a little shadow. It's not perfect, which is perfect. I don't want perfect. I want it to have interest. When you add the details, it all comes together. This is supposed to come down further. There, that's better. Go over that coral there. I'm getting a lot of glare, so I have to look around. Okay. I think there needs to be a little bit more, coming a little bit wider here. Put a little white on that, just a touch. In that area, adds a little highlight. Now if you do something like this, where it's kind of encroaching, you can go back. I rinsed out my brush, go back to the succulent on your palette and make that round again. And I mean round, that one's round, so this is coming back up over it. There. So now that pumpkin is disappearing down there. Okay, so I think it's time for some stems. So I'm going to do those in the burnt umber. Let's see, here's one right here that we will do. Well, maybe I should finish this first, because now I'm going to go ahead and do the stem. So I'm going to go ahead, this is kind of a larger stem. I'm going to go ahead with my number 12. If you need to use a smaller brush, go right ahead. But I'm getting the burnt umber on my brush. Do you see? Burnt umber. I'm loading it well. Looks like I'm going to need to get some more on my palette. Now you can use any dark brown that you like. I usually stick with a limited palette as much as I can. So for a dark brown, I always typically turn to the burnt umber. So then you're not having to buy all these different colors. But there's also Van Dyke brown, bark brown. So you can find which one that you like the tone of the best. So here is my stem. I'm going to do the top part right here. I'm going to kind of make this rounded. Doesn't have to be perfect. I'm kind of at an odd angle to get around the camera. So, and pumpkin stems are not like perfect, so don't worry about it being perfect. So I'm going to come down a little bit further, and then it kind of wide and then narrow. Wide, push down hard, it widens that, and then lift, and it narrows down the rib. And that, there's a rib up there too, so I need that to go up. So that's kind of that one. Now to add a little divot there, or make it to look, I'm dipping a corner in the, what is that? Butter pecan. You can do this with a little bit of white too, but you're going to make this kind of have a little circle there. And some people do streaks up and down. I think I did in my other one, but I was looking at my pumpkins and the streaks are more side to side. And you can go ahead and do a highlight on your stem part if you like. And there you have your pumpkin stem. Let's do one here. This one is more upright, and it does kind of, you know, I didn't bring this pumpkin over far enough here, according to my other one, so my stem's going to go there. That's how you fix it. So let's say here's the little dimple where it's going to come from. Since I've lost the pattern lines in here, that's going to go right there. And so this is kind of a divot right there, divot right there. Let's see, a little one here, a little one here, and this one kind of goes along there. And then the same as far as having a little piece on the top, look rounded. I'm just going to give it a little C stroke there. And then you can do both. And then pull in some streaks with the butter pecan. And then move on to the next pumpkin. See how that covered up that gap there? All fixed now. Learning to fix your errors is an important part of learning to paint. And there's always a fix. So let's see, this one's kind of going this way. And we're going to have that one go to a point rather than have a cut edge. I was looking at some of my pumpkins that I have still from last year. They're hard, but they look like little pumpkins, little tiger pumpkins. Now that stem looks really wonky, so I need to fix it. I need to rinse out my brush so I can get a chisel edge there. And I think I'm just going to drag it so it makes a chisel edge or a sharper point. Get a little butter pecan, give it some texture. Okay, and now there's the last one, the green one. That one it turned out a little wonky, but once you add all the details on the rest of it, it's not going to stick out like a sore thumb because it's all going to blend in together. So, here is the last stem. And I'm just going to Go up, circle top, and press and drag, press and drag, press and drag, press and drag. And on my other one, it has one going up there, but I had more of a defined rib up there. So I'll skip that one. Well, maybe right here. Shows it going up there. Now I can make this a little wider. You notice the green didn't come all the way up here. That's where I would have painted the pumpkin solid and then added that. It avoids those gaps, but I was just trying to show you how you could still have your pattern lines if you wanted. So I'm just going to go in and press a little more succulent in there to fill in. Clean out my brush on there. Oops, got a little bit over it. But we're doing good. Like again, we're not going for perfection. We're going for an impression of something. The brain takes over. So let's see, where was I? Oh, I was going to add a little bit more. Add the circle part. The brush is a little big. I wouldn't say big, I just got messy with it. Alrighty, there's those pumpkins. Now, I admit that I'm kind of terrible with swirly lines, liner brush and swirly lines, but we'll put some in. We're going to do the stems here. You notice I took out all of the pattern lines, graphite lines, and I just have mostly mostly burnt umber. I'm going to put a touch in. I'm going to blend it on my brush, touch of the butter pecan in, and I'm going to pull down these stems. And I'm going to have them some little stemmy things going up like that. Now here, we're going to finish this one over here. It's going to overlap this pumpkin slightly. So my scruffies should be good and dry. I'm going to go ahead and use the small scruffy here. And I am going to go ahead and use, what was it on the background? Was that the, wasn't the butter pecan. It wasn't mushroom, it was boulder. Wasn't it boulder? You know what? I can't remember now. So I'm just going to try some of the mushroom. See, I'll watch the video again and then see it, but it's close enough. I'm going to rinse out that one. I'm going to get the other dry scruffy. I'm dipping in my white, and I'm going to do the little bowl shapes like I did before. And this is going to blend in because that's still wet, but I'm impatient. So, but it worked fine. So there we have that cotton bowl on that side. And we're going to do these stems the same. These are kind of light on the light side. I could go in and darken them, but I think it all works just fine. So I'm not going to worry about it. I am going to get my number 10 flat, and I'm going to double load with the burnt umber. Sorry about that. We're still on. Okay. Burnt umber, butter pecan. I need a little more burnt umber on my palette. Just a touch. Just because it's just one little thing, I'm not going to use a lot. So, but I do want the dark color. So I got the burnt umber, tiny bunch of butter pecan, and we're going to do that. And I'm picking up the undercolor, the white, so I want to reload each time for that. See, that one got a little light because I didn't stop and reload. And to get the white off your brush, you can just wipe it off on the towel and then reload, and then you'll have the darkness. So there, that one is going off, so you won't do a stem there, and we can still do a couple of stems, like very light chisel edge there. So if you want to do some swirlies with off the pumpkin stems, like I said, I'm terrible at these swirlies, but we'll try them. I'm too stiff, I think. Someone says you need to use your whole arm or shoulder, and I seem to want to use my hand. So I am getting succulent on my liner brush. This is the number 2 liner that comes in the pack. Getting a lot of water in there. I'm getting inky, so it really flows. And you've seen me do this before. When I use a liner, I pull, twist, and make sure it's coming to a point. So I'm going to pick one. Now, I don't usually draw the swirly lines on here because following them is impossible. So we want to do a loop-de-doo. So I'm going to try this. I didn't have enough pressure. My problem is I put too much pressure and or too little pressure. So let's balance with my finger. Okay, that one was actually pretty good. I'm touching my little finger down to kind of help guide me. So this one, and if they're very light, that's fine. We want to keep them subtle. So we'll do this way. See, that one kind of struggled with it. Let's do this one. I'm probably holding it too close. I need to hold it back further. Let's see. Alrighty. Enough swirlies. You can do as many or as little as you like. You can just leave them out if you want to, but I thought I would show you how I struggle with that so you won't think you're alone. Okay, there is our pumpkins. Now I am going to share with you how I do the lettering. Again, I will admit I am terrible at this lettering, but I'm trying to get better by doing it. I do it with a brush. I don't do it with a pen. So that may be part of my struggle, but since I always have brushes, I try to use them, and I use the paint. So we will go on now to the lettering. So now here we are, and we are going to do the lettering for this sign. Here is the words. This is part of the pattern, and I'm going to kind of place them not straight across. I'm going to do it at a little bit of an angle, like I did on my other sign. Let me see, where is my other sign? If I can show you. So here is how it is. It's not perfectly straight, it's not perfectly arched, it's just kind of fun and simply put on there. I have told you this before, but I'm terrible at lettering, but I'm going to give it a shot. I'm going to show you how I do this. And I'm just going to enjoy the journey. The more I do it, the better I get the feel for it. So I'm making sure the words are on there, well, where I want it. It doesn't matter if it kind of overlaps somewhere on the design. That's all good too. So I'm going to tape this on here, and I'm going to do the white graphite paper with this, and I like using a ballpoint pen. For some reason it seems to do better than a stylus for me. So I'm just going to go over the lettering. It does not have to be perfect. This is just a guideline, and it's all going to be good. Now why I left it taped, because it hinges and I can see what it looks like. Okay, that's good. Now I'm going to move it for the fall part. Which means I'll have to move the tape. And I'm going to put the fall on here where I think it will look good. Let's see how that's going to go. Now see, this one's going to go over this cotton bowl a little bit, but that's okay. See the lining up of it? Where is it on there? Just play with it until you're happy. Make sure I'm not overlapping the Y. Okay, tape it here. And one thing about the graphite, if I don't like the placement after I've transferred it, I can erase it with my Magic Rub Eraser, which here's a portion of it. I linked to it in my basic supply list of my blog post, or I should say my blog post on my basic supplies list of things I use all the time. So let's see how that turned out. Okay, there we go. Now I can't see underneath there, but we can make the ending the way we want to. Now on this I want it to be dark, so I'm going to use black. The Ceram Coat, Delta Creative Ceram Coat Black is what I have found works the best for me for lettering. It's just got the right consistency while being opaque, and I just prefer it. But you can try anything you want or color. I don't think I need a lot. Also, let's see, where's my brush? I don't have it here. Let me find it. So I've kind of got this at an angle so I feel comfortable with how I'm doing this. I'm already bad at it. So I just want to be comfortable. I'm loading my brush. This is what's called a watercolor brush. Where usually it's filled with water and you use it for watercolors. Carol of CC Crafts is the one that helped me to learn about this. She had used it and said it worked good for lettering, especially for those of us who are challenged. So what I'm going to do is do the lettering. I'm going to kind of look at, I'm going to just start in, and I'm going to give that a good press there so it's rounded. And then I'm just going to follow the lines. Now I want the back to be fatter, so I'm pressing harder, and then I lift to the point for narrower. Some of the lines may show through, but that's all right. We can erase those once everything's dry. You see how I'm too unsteady? I'm trying to do this from a distance. It would be easier for me if I had it at a different angle. So this isn't going to turn out as pretty as I would prefer, but I'm just showing you how it gets done. And I can go back over it. But basically it's pressure. Pressure, widen, lift for narrower lines. Keep the paint inky, but not too wet. You don't want it running off. So as I come down, I want it wider. So I like the squared off edge. If you want it rounded, you would just give it a little round. So like the loops, you want them to be narrower. And then the backs I wanted fatter. I reload as I need. If it's feeling like it's dragging, add a little bit more water to your brush. Reload in your puddle of paint. Now I want that part of the U wide and then narrow as it comes up. And I'm adding more pressure, and then I want the loop, see it's dragging, so I need to add more, touch it in the water, add a bit more, start back here, and that didn't work, so I'm going to have to, there we go, get my hand at an angle. Now, I'm further back than I would like. I would be in the camera. And I made a mistake there. Do you know how to fix that? Q-tips are your friend. And I don't have any right here. So I'm going to take a little piece of paper towel and I'm going to wipe that up. Like I said, a Q-tip could give you more dexterity and you can get closer. But also, as long as it's wet, you can pull it up. Here, I'll show you with, here's a number 10 flat. I moistened it, and then you just pull. And then you sop it up. You see how that works? And that's how you can fix some of your errors, as well as with a Q-tip, while it's still wet. I could have done that over there too, but I'm in a hurry. Just giving you an idea. I'm just giving you an idea of how to do lettering. Now you can look at it and see where you want to fix it. This P, the top part's a little too narrow. Narrow is better than too thick. And I just go back over it with that. And I thicken it up. So if I want the little knob on the end, I just kind of push it on there. And there you have the knob. Let me see if I can fix this over here, this H. Like I said, I'm at a bad angle and I don't want to get my hand in the wet paint, so I probably would be wiser to wait till it all dries and then try to go in and fix that wonky one. Okay, so here is the fall part. Let me see if I can get that part done. Halfway decent. So I want the little knobby end and pull it in. Now these L's are going to be tricky because I can't see what I'm doing. Because my hand's in the way of my eyesight. I would change this direction of this board if I was not doing the video to where it was more comfortable for me. So here's this part that goes over the cotton boll. There. It leaves a lot to be desired, but I could have done it better if I wasn't working around a camera. So, I know, I keep repeating that. I'm sorry. There we have the lettering. Now, I could also come in and add a highlight to the lettering. I may totally skip this because I may hate it once. So that is how you do lettering on your sign. And the more you do it, the better you get at it. And you can come in after it's dried and thicken up lines and what have you to improve upon it. But I'm just going to test something here. See if I can add a highlight. So it's still a bit damp, so I don't want to get my hand in it, but I'm just going to do like one side of the H to give it a bit of highlight. That was really wet right there. Give it a bit of highlight, and the same with this side. And then the A. Got a little bit too much water in my brush. So when you're highlighting or adding like that, you always stay to the same side on all of them. And you notice I try to skip over that black. Whoops, I got my hand in some of the wet on the F. And when I'm ending, I'm diving into the black there, and it kind of pulls it in there where it's not just a chopped off white line. So I'm kind of shortening it. I shouldn't say shortening, I'm lifting it so it kind of looks like it's diving underneath, if that makes any sense at all. So this F is still wet, so I may end up getting the black into the white. And that is how you would add a highlight on one side, or a shadow. If you had like a light color and you wanted to add a shadow, you could go in with a gray and just do this subtle little detail like that. So I need to do around that F and what have you, but you get the picture, and that is how you add your lettering to your sign. I hope this helps you. Please, if you do this, if you create this sign, please share on my Facebook page at Pamela Gropey Art. Thank you for watching this painting lesson. I hope you enjoyed it, and go out there and create some signs. Also, if you didn't want to do lettering, you can find lots of nice stencils that have wording that you can reuse over and over again. So the initial output for a stencil, whether it be $10 or what have you, you can make back if you're going to sell your signs. So don't be afraid to skip the hand lettering if you don't like it. Or I'm not a fan of doing it. To me, it's, I don't know, tedious and boring. And maybe if I was good at it, I would like it. But I don't. I'm not. And so I'm not a big fan. I love taking a stencil and adding the words and it being crisp and clean. So there you have it. Happy painting.